for joining. Today, Robyn is going to be talking about there's a word that I can't think of, but going off of last week's meeting and elaborating on agent safety and what you can do to stay safe out there. But beforehand, I asked Craig Benson of Caliber Loans to join us to kind of talk about the fact that interest rates have been going up and what that means currently, any projections Craig has for the future. And then this is kind of a bigger conversation, but Craig, we've got like 5-10 minutes to talk about it. But if you have some extra time to talk about the rate increases of about 0.75 across the board for all non-owner occupied homes. So that's a lot to unpack. Go.
Yeah, we'll just whip through this really quick. Yeah, I mean, you guys have obviously seen rates going up steadily over the last couple of months. The one thing I can say is, hey, it was always going to happen. The market is cyclical, you guys. One of the big things and why it really happened right now is, I mean, over the last 12 months, we have printed trillions upon trillions upon trillions of dollars that never existed. When you do that and throw it into circulation, guess what? You just are starting to devalue what the dollar is worth. Now, it was incredibly necessary to do that, but no matter what flavor inflation looks like, it is going to be the enemy of interest rates. So we're seeing that kind of get hit now as you're seeing rates go up. Rates are still at this incredible spot though. We're in the mid threes going on right now. Historical rate is at 6%. A year and a half ago, I was refinancing people for under 4 and they were beyond themselves with joy that they were below 4%. So yes, the last 12 months is kind of, spoiled us a bit with where rates were, but they were always artificially bought at a lower rate by the Fed. So the Fed has kind of pulled back because it's necessary for them to do that because, hey, we're buying our own debt, okay? So you are going to see rates probably still go up a little bit over the next couple of months. There's still some room for it to go up, but then it's going to get to a point where we have the inflation at a high enough point where the Fed is going to step back in and start buying mortgage-backed securities in a higher volume again. So whether it's going to be at the end of this year, next year, or leading into 2022, 2023, you are going to see the cycle come back down again with lower rates. And I'm guessing they're probably going to be around where they were over the last 12 months, okay? So everything is just cyclical right now. So it's okay. Rates are still in a great spot, you guys. People are going to freak out over the rates. Does it mean there's going to be less refinances for your clients out there? Yeah, absolutely. But the purchase market should not be really affected. Besides, it's going to price some people out of the market, but that's okay because we need to have buyers that can actually get into these homes. And so that's going to lower the competition going on there because we don't have any inventory right now.
Can I say something kind of piggybacking on that? Just a reminder, when interest rates go up, what does that really mean? I mean, we know this, we're real estate agents. We do this all the time. But what does that actually mean for buyers? Because it's more than just a number on the page. But what does that actually mean? It just means, like when I say this all the time, the only reason people buy homes, can qualify for homes at a certain purchase price, it really has nothing to do with the purchase price. It has to do with the payment, right? So all it means is they can afford their payments going to go up. So if they can only afford a $2,000 a month payment, then the amount of purchasing power you have goes down. It doesn't mean you now no longer qualify for a home most of the time. Someone would be very, very barely qualifying if this affected that. All it means is now instead of looking at $350,000 homes, you might just start looking at 340 and less. So just remind your buyers, no, you can still buy a home. We just can't buy a home at the price that we were thinking. It's going to be a little bit less, and it could fluctuate. It could change, but just keep your buyers calm and say you can still buy a home. It's just you're approved slightly less now.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off that too, with home prices increasing, with rates kind of going up, here's the thing that helps combat that is every year we have about a 2 to 4% increase in what wages are in living wages. That means, hey, we can still afford the same amount of home going on for most people. So even as home prices start to rise, the wage median is also going up at the same time. Okay, you guys, so that's an important thing to keep in mind too, and kind of explain that to your buyers as well. Okay.
Hey, this is Wilson here. I just want about rates. What kind of discussions are you having with someone who has already locked in on a property and someone who might be 2 or 3 months away, what kind of discussions are you having about, should I lock? Should I wait? If you can maybe tell us a little more about your conversations.
I mean, right now, the real thing is lock and don't look back. You're still getting an incredible rate. You're sub 4 going on. We don't know what the market's going to do. Like I said, there's still plenty of room for them to still increase. So my thing would be lock, don't look back. If they already have locked, awesome, great for you. You hit a jackpot. But again, it's lock, don't look back. And you kind of just got to roll with the market, you guys. Like that's just the way it is. The rates are a living, breathing organism. They change second by second, and that's just it. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you guys aren't selling rates. I'm not even selling rates. We're selling a service going on here. And that's the most important thing that you guys need to continue to concentrate on by being an incredible educator all the way through. Does that kind of answer that for you, Wilson?
Yes.
And to piggyback on that a little bit is, it's gambling. If you as a buyer start to say, well, maybe I'll just wait until the rates drop. What if they don't drop? Maybe I'll wait until the market dips. Maybe it doesn't dip. I've told the story a million times on these meetings where I had 2 clients who wanted to buy in 2018. They're like, nah, it's about to dip. And in 2019, nah, it's going to dip. Last year, they bought a home for like way more than what it would have been if they had bought in 2018. They probably would have had over 100,000 equity if they had bought in 2018. I'm not saying it's not going to dip tomorrow. It may. I'm not saying interest rates won't go down tomorrow. They may, but we have no idea. So if you can afford the payment on this home and you like the home, stop. Don't be greedy. And I would say that if it's my client, your client, or, a family member, like, I don't know what's going to happen. If you guys know what's going to happen, then you guys can give better advice than I can. But if you can afford the home and you want to buy a home and you like the home, write the freaking offer.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the other thing, is that there's always going to be refinance cycles, you guys. So this is not going to be your forever rate. Is this going to even be your forever home?
Great point.
We don't know. So we need to go ahead and have those conversations up front. Okay. Yeah, that's the big thing there. Moving on to the next topic, which is going to be the new price adjustments for non-owner occupied. So for investment properties, there already was a higher price that you pay when it came to interest rate on investment property homes, because they presented more risk to the lender. That was always there. What changed here is the Fed came out and said, hey, we're only going to buy 7% total of our portfolio is going to be non-owner occupied homes, basically. But that included now secondary homes. Secondary homes were at the same price as a primary residence. So we've seen a pricing adjustment of about 75 bips go on, or basis points. Sorry, you don't speak mortgageese. Sorry about that, guys. So basis points going on, which is, about 3/4 of a percentage point higher. So they are more expensive now to turn people away, because all of these companies need to meet that 7% portfolio that they can sell to. Now, that's just for my company. It's about 75 bips. What that really translates to for other people is going to depend what their portfolios look like. We were already pretty well stacked up against that 7%. So some companies might have a higher loan level price adjustment on them. Some might have a lower, just kind of depending where they're at there. But I think that's going to be a good ballpark of where you're sitting at.
Love it.
Yeah. That's really those 2 topics. So if anybody has any questions about it.
So because I don't speak lenderese,
yeah.
Does that mean, is that basically saying that like people who are trying to invest in like secondary properties like Airbnbs and stuff, that's limited by, okay.
Yeah,
Do they get charged?
It's now more expensive, again, because they are riskier for the lender, which when they are then sold off on the secondary market, the Fed's been a big buyer of them. It then presents more risk to them as well. So they're like, okay, we need to kind of ease off
Pump
on
the brakes.
as we're going through here. Yeah.
Oh, what is the percentage rate for like a secondary home?
Secondary home now, so you're at like 3.5 right now for just a primary residence. Was thrown in at 3.5, so you're going to be sitting at about 4.25 for a secondary home now.
Oh, yeah, which is
still an awesome rate, you guys.
Yeah.
It really actually is. Like it is.
And again, so all that means, if I'm talking to my in-laws about buying a second home, all it means is we just have to adjust our numbers, and we still aren't going to buy any property that the payment doesn't work with the amount of cash flow that they want to earn. If the numbers don't work, and we're not going to buy it. If they do work, let's not be greedy. Let's buy it. That's it. It's really, it really is that simple. I know it's easier for us to talk about this as all real estate agents. It's harder when it's an emotional buyer. But however you want to, however you want to sugarcoat that to make them feel more comfortable, that's really what you have to indicate to them. We're buying,
and that's a big thing too. Like right now, especially in this crazy market we're seeing, you guys should be having this conversation up front just about the emotional experience. When it comes to these houses, you might want to just kind of take out the emotion from it. Like, hey, don't get emotionally attached to any of these houses. Like, we're going up against 15 people on every single house. Like, there's a good chance you're not going to get the house on your first offer. So having that conversation, like, we just need to make sure, hey, this is the number that we're willing to go up to. If it goes over that, fine, we're on to the next one. So that's a really good way to help your buyers avoid burnout as well, you guys. Okay.
Love it. That was really helpful. Thanks. Thanks, Craig, as always. And Robyn, I'll leave it to you.
Hey, hello guys. So I am going to be talking about agent safety today. I actually made a little presentation, so let me know if you guys can see my screen.
We
Should
can.
be able to now. Perfect. All right, I'm going to shrinky dinky all down. And then I'm going to do this full screen, so just holler at me if you guys have questions or concerns. So broker safety basics, I just want to start out by saying that I am not a safety expert. I don't even know karate. All of this is just advice that I'm giving as, I don't know, just sort of like your paranoid friend who's been a woman living in kind of gritty cities for the last 10 years. So I have not reviewed this with Isaac. If you guys have any questions about anything, Isaac is going to be the one that knows the facts and what we can and can't do. So if you have any questions, you can always defer to him. Okay, so I looked up some safety stats from NAR to get started. All of these are kind of awful. 23% of agents experienced a situation that made them fear for their personal safety or the safety of their personal information. So this meeting is not really about your personal information. I can totally do like an agent safety training where we talk about how to protect yourself online, how to keep your data safe, etc. But this is more about like in-person, face-to-face kind of things. 31% of agents felt unsafe during an open house. 5% of agents said they had been a victim of a crime while working as a real estate pro. Sorry, I have that duplicated. 38% of agents have participated in a self-defense class. 49% of agents chose to carry self-defense weapons. 46% of men and 50% of women carry a self-defense weapon or tool. And now, thanks to technology, 58% of members use a smartphone safety app to track their whereabouts and alert colleagues in case of an emergency. So again, just good advice. Before you leave the house, some stuff that I do is I always check my tires, my back seat, and how much gas I have in the car. So this is just quickly walking around the outside of your car, making sure everything looks good. I know that we've all heard that like story about that woman who was like walking to the mall parking lot and there was a guy in her back seat. I don't know if that's like an urban folklore, but I still always just check my back seat just in case. And then share your location with like a family member or Isaac or myself. Isaac's pretty responsive, like during the 9 to 5. I work a little bit later than that. I also always have my phone on me. So if you are going somewhere, you can always call and check in with us, or you can share your location with your phone or with an app. I think knowing the neighborhood you're driving to matters a lot. So there's been times that I've been on the phone with someone and I stopped looking at directions and I got lost. That sucks. I think knowing the neighborhood in the daylight, so you sort of have an idea where the landmarks are, kind of how to get back to the freeways, what have you, it might be worth doing that. Let's say if you're sitting in open house, to do that like before the weekend comes. So if it's, dark at 3 p.m. because it's the Pacific Northwest, you still know how to orient yourself and get out of town. Ask the client, if you don't know them well, to send you a picture of their ID. So this one's kind of intrusive, right? Like if this is like a Redfin lead and you haven't secured them as a buyer, this is something where you might feel uncomfortable. It's not something you have to do, but it's something that used to be pretty standard at real estate offices. So like back in the day, people would come into the office and they'd be meeting you to go out and tour showings together. And it was the responsibility of someone at the front desk to scan a picture of the person's ID. So this is only some sort of like recently stopped being a thing in the last, I'd say 10 years with technology. People get leads and then they just go to properties and meet them. I don't think that's safe. I think it is always smart to meet at a Starbucks or a Target or somewhere where there's people before you go to the showing in case something feels sketchy. I also, the way I sort of pitch it is I tell clients like, you know, the real estate market is moving super, super fast. I have to write offers really quickly sometimes. If you can send me a picture of your ID, I can fill it out in all the paperwork and have it ready to go so we can get our offer submitted as fast as we can. That's kind of my like sneaky workaround way to do it. And I haven't had any pushback yet. But I'm also very green. So look them up online and verify they're a real person. So there's different ways to do that. And we'll talk more about that in the sort of like how to keep yourself safe online class. But just look them up by name. If their name, so I had a client who came from Redfin via my mentor, and she said her name was her nickname and then a very different last name than what her actual name was. And I couldn't find her online and I almost didn't meet them because of it. But thankfully I ended up being able to find her husband online. I saw pictures of them with their kids and, you know, them at the park and their church friends and all those different things. And so, you know, those weren't the reasons I decided to go meet them, but the fact that they looked like people I probably could bump into and feel safe around helped me feel secure when I was meeting them. A couple of different apps that are really helpful. So there's Forewarn, Clurd, Been Verified, People Smart, and that can actually help you find people online before you meet them in real life. I usually use Been Verified because it's what the office uses. It's super helpful. You can, you know, practice, you can look yourself up and see what's on there. You know, you shouldn't be discriminatory of people that have, you know, if you don't have the paid version, sometimes it'll say like arrest records or like court records or documents that you should see and you only have to pay $9.95. A lot of times those are like speeding tickets, maybe like a DUI from like a couple years ago or something. So it's not always something like big and scary. So don't immediately see something and be like discriminatorily like, oh, I can't meet these people. Just take some time to look into what happened. A lot of times if you go on Google and just look up someone's name and then look up plus public records, that's another good way to find people. Have an excuse or an out of the situation if you feel uneasy. I am not super great at lying on my feet. Like I just, you know, if someone, Isaac's laughing because it sounded stupid, but you know what I mean? If someone asks me a question, I am a terrible liar. I like get pale and like kind of sweaty and I'm like, I just don't lie very often. But having practiced an excuse, like if, you know, I'm at a showing or something and the client's like, I want to see the garage and I've got the heebie-jeebies, I'll just say, oh, unfortunately, I don't have the key for the garage, so we can only stay in the house. I apologize. I can reach out to the listing agent and see if we can check it tomorrow, though, like if it's dark or something. Sorry, my beloved's doing the dishes, so it's kind of noisy. COVID life. After that, I think that having a plan to check in with someone by the time you're done at the showing is a really good call. So, for example, like let's say Christy's going out and she's showing 6 different houses. You know, it's not a great idea for her to be like, hey, babe, I'm going to call you in 3 hours and check in. Maybe have it be like every 2 houses, every half hour, just text someone and be like, hey, I'm okay. You know, if you know your clients pretty well, it's probably not a risk because these are more sort of like if you don't know the people you're going to meet.
Also, wait, can I add something to that? So another great thing that I've seen like a lot of people doing just in general, but it would also work with a real estate. If you contact someone and you're like, hey, if I text you like a certain thing, like call me with an emergency, like pretend it's an
It's like
emergency.
a code word.
Yeah, like a little code word, like just say like an animal emoji or something like that. You send that to them and they immediately call you and say, oh my gosh, I have an emergency, you have to get here. And that kind of gives you an out too.
That's totally possible. I've actually done that on dates. I went on a really terrible first date and I texted my friend, this is awful. And she called me and she's like, oh, our neighbor's cats have gone missing. You've got to come home and find them. So I think that's a good point, Rachel. Like if you're concerned for your safety in a big way, and I don't know, for some reason you've decided to go forward and continue the showing, you know, if you're going to talk about, you're probably not going to talk about apricots or bananas or something at the showing. That could be like a code word that if you called your partner and you're like, hey, this showing is bananas, like they've got, you know, apricot themed wallpaper or something, you know what I mean? It's a little bit silly, but who cares? Like this is all about keeping you safe. Isaac laughs, but Isaac is also like a 6-foot+ man who's probably never been in a situation where he's been super intimidated like that.
Did you just say I'm a plus size man?
6 foot+, like you're taller than 6 foot.
I wear skinny jeans, okay?
A plus, that was great.
Oh, my little planky. I'm sorry. Okay.
Foot plus man.
He's tall. Isaac is tall. I'm not allowed to call him an int anymore. But anyway, just more good advice. Open houses and showings, try to see the home during the daylight, obviously, if you can. And if not, carry a heavy flashlight. I carry this like really big, what is it called? It's not Duracell, that's a battery. Mag light? I carry a mag light. If you hit someone with a mag light, like they're going down. Like it is a heavy flashlight. And what's awesome about it is you can just carry it to the showing and it doesn't look like a weapon, right? Because you're looking for potential, I don't know, knob and tube in the basement or something. You have an excuse to have a flashlight in your purse or in your hand basically anytime, even if it's daytime. Park your car in a lit area if possible, and then make sure you can't be blocked in. I've seen a lot of agents that will like pull into driveways. I don't like that because what if someone comes up behind you and blocks your car in, then what are you going to do? If it's a more rural showing and neighbors aren't right next door, like you kind of just lost your easiest escape. So just sort of, it's worth parking a little bit further away if you think it makes for an easier exit or a faster escape. Immediately upon entering the property, turn on the lights and lock the door behind you. Carry the Supra with you so other agents know you're inside. So Isaac taught me this. So I always carry like the little black part that pops out of the bottom of the Supra and the keys with me. I think what a good purpose of that is like, chances are, especially in this market, there's another agent coming to that showing after you. And if you were supposed to be out of the house 2 hours prior and the Supra is missing, like the listing agent is going to be the one that gets on the horn. That's like, hey, what's going on? Like someone was supposed to show my home. They went into the property and never left. I just think it's a good way to throw up another red flag. Have your clients lead you through the home with you in the back of them. So I call this Vanna Whiting. So this is sort of like, so up there, we've got the primary bedroom and down here's the basement, and then just open the door for them. It makes it so they go first, or if they're kind of hesitating, you can be like, after you. It's just better to have people in front of you than behind.
For the record, I like that tip the most of all the ones you've given. That one seems really reasonable. Don't turn your back to someone you don't know. That seems kind of obvious.
Check the entire house for opens or showings of people that might have lingered. So especially in open houses, you know, you've got potentially people going out the back door, not locking it behind them. You've got your front door open, you know, for COVID safety, trying to get ventilation or something. It's always worth it, I think, to check the property before you leave the property. And that can mean like checking the closets, making sure that no one's hiding behind the shower curtain, just basic things. If you do suspect that someone is in the house with you, get out. And you don't need to like run, right? Like you don't want to bring attention to the fact that you think someone might be in the house, but try to leave the house as fast as you can, secure the property, and then call the police as soon as you're safe locked in your car. I'm not crazy about calling the police personally, but this is one of those instances where it is the absolute smartest thing for you to do as an agent. Don't tour alone. So if, you know, in this market, like showings are really hard to come by sometimes. I've been doing a lot of twilight and midnight showings, but like evening showings. I'll bring Alberto with me. If my client's in Seattle and I'm doing a virtual showing, it's nice having a second person at that property with me, especially if it's been vacant. You never know if someone could have accessed the property and is now in it squatting. It's just safer that way. And make sure to always lock the doors immediately after entering the property and then check all of them before leaving. So not a safety thing per se, but one of our agents, I think he left a showing and his clients had left the back door unlocked and he got hit with a really heavy fine for it. So it's just a good policy. You know, if your clients seem like they're a little shady or something and they're like, oh, you got to go back through the house and make sure everything's secure, just say, yep, you know, I have to because it's my job. Always feel free to like defer stuff to being part of your job. Okay, so when you're in danger, trust your instincts. It's better to be wrong and not get a commission than it is to be right and have gotten murdered. Obviously, that's kind of an overstatement, but there is nothing more important to us than like your safety. I've definitely, you know, I've been in the business for a while. I've had agents that have told me they've had to lock themselves in the bathroom because someone came after them. I've had agents that told me they've been robbed at gunpoint during showings. It is always better to just be wary. I see Isaac laughing, but I don't know why.
I thought you were making a joke about that. Sorry, you're right. I shouldn't. It's not a joking matter. I apologize.
I was just honestly,
I'm not laughing about the situation. I just was laughing at how you said it. Sorry, I apologize.
It's okay. The second thing that I really want to say is stop being polite. You know, so as a real estate agent, you're always trying to be the most like vanilla, neutral, like appeasing kind of person, right? So it's like, oh, I'm so sorry that the other agent is still in the house 5 minutes into our showing. Oh, you know, I apologize. Like you can be really polite most of the time, but as soon as you start feeling those hairs on your back sort of tingle and you know that something's wrong, it's time to get firm. And that means, you know, if you're at a showing or something and there's let's say I'm a woman and there's a single male buyer and it's our first time at a house together and he's like trying to take me upstairs and I don't feel safe about it, I'll say, you know, I'm sorry, I have to get back home. Thank you so much for your time. I can show you this home tomorrow, but right now I do have to leave. And, you know, people are going to fight back, but you are still in control at this point. You still have the power to say, no, actually, I'm not comfortable with this. We need to leave now. Like, I know that instinctively you're worried about someone going on Google and writing you a bad review. You're worried about, you know, potentially discrimination, even of like gender and what have you. Those are scary risks, but they're not as scary as getting attacked. So always trust your instincts. I think always trying to run instead of trying to fight is a good call. Flight over fight, always. This also kind of goes back into the not being polite. I think, you know, we watch movies and stuff and there's always like, oh, it wasn't a fair fight because she kicked him in the bits or something. Like, if someone is attacking you, there's no clean fighting. You can hook eyeballs, you can punch people in the face, you can kick them wherever you need to kick them to escape. I know Isaac is dying right now, but honestly, if someone is attacking you, you have to attack them back and then get out.
Also, I definitely listened to a podcast that's called Stay Sexy and Don't Get Murdered. And their number one rule is fuck politeness. Like, you don't have to be polite. If you feel in danger, you have a right to say, nope, enough, I'm leaving. I just wanted to reiterate that because I think that's a really good point, Robyn.
I think it's just, especially for women, it is deeply ingrained in us that we always have to be polite. And as real estate professionals, you feel it as well. Politeness sometimes can endanger your life. You need to know when to draw that line. On that same note, nothing is more valuable than your life. If someone's like, give me your purse, have it, like give them your keys, give them your car. It doesn't, all that stuff is replaceable. And I know in the moment, if you've got mace in your hand and you feel like you've got the upper hand, like still give them your purse in the hopes that that gets them out so you can escape. It's just, yeah. If you can't make it to your car or where, you left your keys behind, try to find whatever neighbor has lights on and try to go towards that house. I live in Tacoma and I'm in Hilltop. And if I went to someone's house in the middle of the night and started knocking on the door, probably would not get a super friendly greeting and someone probably wouldn't open the door. If someone has lights on and you are saying like, please call the police, like I've been attacked, they may not open the door, but they will probably call the police for you. And when you are out of danger, call the police as soon as you can. So I think instinctively people want to call their spouses, or, you think like, oh, I need to call Isaac because he's my boss and the real estate manager. Like, no, call the police first. The rest of us will hear after that. So safety tools, apps for in case something happens. So I use Noonlight. There's also Katana Safety and Aura and Protect. All of these are apps that are on your phone that you can have a network of people that basically will check in with you. So on the app, it's on my phone. I just open it and you can see it says hold until safe. So all I have to do is just hold this down on my phone. So while I'm showing the home, I can have my phone open or whatever. And if I let go, I have to enter a PIN. And if I don't enter it within 10 seconds, it sends the police my GPS coordinates and then my safety network, which is my boyfriend, Isaac, Christy, my best friend, Nicole, and my best friend, Blaine. They will all be alerted of where I was and that I sounded an alarm and that something is wrong. What's also cool about Noonlight is, let's say, oh, they've just followed me with a text that said, glad you're safe, Robyn. What's also cool about Noonlight is after, if something happens, let's say, they are going to check in with you after that, like alarm starts signaling. So let's say you're being held at gunpoint and you get the call from the police, because the police will call you on your phone to figure out what's going on. And you're like, oh, everything's fine, nothing is wrong. Noonlight additionally will call you after the police and ask you for a key phrase that says, like what Rachel was talking about. It's basically like a safety code. So they'll be like, what's your code word? And I can be like, Agent Mulder or something. And then they know that it's actually me and I'm actually safe. Another idea is taking self-defense classes or learning new skills. Last week we had Archangel Security talk with us. They offer self-defense stuff. They offer weapons training, what have you. I usually go to YouTube just because like I'm not super strong. I'm missing pretty much half of my left bicep, but I'm tall and I'm heavy and I can throw my weight around. Like knowing what you are capable of and how to best exercise those things are really helpful. I also think as far as self-defense, there's a lot of really good tips of like, okay, you can look up like if there's an active shooter, where are shooters most likely? Oh my God, I can't believe we're talking about this today. Sorry. But if there's an active shooter, the best places to hide. So let's say there's a door to a room like right here, and the door swings open this way. Chances are right here is the best place to hide because the intruder is going to come in and go this way before they see you back there. So just little things like that can help you feel more empowered for if there is an unsafe situation. I also think sort of casing the house before you go to it, like if you're hosting a real estate open house, knowing like, okay, there's the back door here and then there's a gate, but there's also the alley there, so I could exit into the alley. sort of knowing where your exits are can be really helpful. Other non-lethal weapons. So there's pepper spray and mace. Mace and tear gas tend to not work as well on people who are under the influence of drugs. I think people who tend to be, I don't know, in Pierce County, if I encountered someone that was on drugs, I think methamphetamines would probably be my initial guess. And so pepper spray is a safer bet on them than mace or tear gas. All of them will mess you up. If someone, let's say you accidentally pepper spray or accidentally mace someone, mixing milk of magnesia and milk and then running that into your eyes can really help. Water will actually make it worse. So try not to hold water on the skin, but just try to flush out the eyes. There's also tasers. So this is my taser. It's a ViperTech taser. I think it's like 30 bucks. I'm not going to discharge it right now, but it's super easy. The biggest thing about these weapons is you want to make sure you know how they work before you just stick them in your purse and forget about them. Your weapon is only as good as you are with it. So for example, you know, this taser, I have to push this side button up and then hit this in order to turn on the taser. If I just have it here, it's just a flashlight, which doesn't do me a hill of beans in an emergency, right? So make sure you know what your weapons are and how they work.
Go ahead.
Oh, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say that, like, if you don't feel like carrying a giant, like, not to say that like anybody wouldn't want to carry a taser around, or if you don't, that's fine too, but they do have tasers that are like, they look different. They are like hidden. I've seen tasers that look like lipstick or mascara, or
So
like,
those aren't tasers. Those are stun guns.
Right. And I'm just saying, not just like that particular thing, but I have seen tasers that are in like the kind of disguise. So like, if you don't feel like carrying around a giant taser, you can always find ones that are smaller or look different, or however you want.
The problem with stun guns is you have to be super close and you have to make pretty good contact in order for stun guns to really be in effect. Tasers, if you get someone with a taser, they're probably going to pee their pants and go down. Like, it is going to hit them pretty freaking hard. If you hit someone with a stun gun and they're wearing like a thick coat, you might not make contact. So I'm always about tasers and not as about stun guns. Other non-lethal weapons, there's spiked keychains. So I know every woman has the story about putting the keys between her fingers to jab out someone's eyes or something. These spiked keychain, the ones that's really common are cat ears. So they just look like a kitty, and then you put your fingers through the holes and they have the little ears, and the ears are like kind of like brass knuckles, but pointy. I think they're like between $8 and $15. They're super cheap. And then there's also noise alarms. So there's alarm and she's birdie. So both of those are devices where if they get separated, let's say you break them or hit a button or what have you, like a super loud, like fire alarm-esque alarm will go off, alerting people around you that something is wrong. And then I'm not sure about the legality of this, but there's also defender rings. So defender rings are just rings that you put on your finger, and they have usually like a little bubble on the top. And if you take off the bubble, it's a tiny blade. And so it's something that is really hard and it doesn't really move. So if you are punching someone or slicing someone, it's pretty easy. Lethal weapons is, in Washington State, knives that are under 4 inches in length are legal. So this is the knife I carry in my purse. It's a Gerber. It is too big. This one is technically illegal. So if I go to showings or what have you, this knife is too big for me to take. But if it was about here, it would be okay. Depends on the type of knives that you're interested in using. So there's tactical knives, and then there's knives like this. So tactical knives are knives that don't look like knives. So those are the ones that look like a hairbrush in your purse, and then you pull it apart and then there's a knife in it. There's also tactical pens, which are the same thing. And there's also keychains that you can buy that are essentially long spikes. All of those are potentially lethal weapons. And remember, it is illegal to carry a knife or a weapon when the intent is to intimidate or cause bodily harm. So that's just a little disclaimer there. Okay, so important notes. Washington is a stand your ground state in which there is no duty to retreat in the face of what would be perceived by an ordinary person to be the threat to themselves or to others by another person that is likely to cause serious injury or death. It is a gross demeanor to aim a firearm, whether loaded or not, at or towards any human being unless the person is acting in self-defense. They can be charged with brandishing and threatening someone with a deadly weapon. So basically what it's saying is if someone attacks you in Washington, you are a stand your ground state. You have the option to fight back or you have the option to flee. Remember that gun laws are not something I have any room to talk about. You know, you need to learn what the laws are as far as your firearm, what is permitted, as far as what is safe for you to carry. I sort of treat like weapons, I don't, make sure to take them out before you go to the airport. I've lost 2 knives that way. But what's important is sort of making sure that the people you're with know that you have a weapon, right? So if you have a gun, let's say, I sort of would imagine having a gun is kind of like having a dog. Like not everyone's going to be cool with you bringing it into their house. And so I think just a quick like, hey, I have a weapon on me, just so you know, are you comfortable with me bringing it onto your private property? If they say yes, then it's not a problem. If they say no, then you do have to respect that. Finally, just Isaac and my biggest concern is your safety. I am not an expert, so if there's any tips or tricks you learn, I'm happy to learn them too. Nothing is more important to us than you guys and your safety. And in real estate, unfortunately, you'd think it's just selling houses and it's fine. We have a lot of people that get murdered as agents and a lot of people that get harmed because of being agents. So people get, for example, I'm going to bring up Rhonda. If you look at Rhonda online, she is polished, she is poised, she looks like money. Like she looks expensive. I would be concerned if I was Rhonda about meeting someone at like a vacant home in Port Orchard. My biggest concern would be that I would potentially get robbed because I kind of already look, and I'm not victim blaming, but you kind of look like a target. And so I'm not saying Rhonda's doing anything wrong. I'm just saying if you look expensive, if you project money, which most of us do in this industry, you are potentially a target. Secondarily, if there is something about you online, so for example, I'm gay, and if someone looked me up online and they were homophobic and I met them at a showing, I could get bodily harm because of that. That happened last year. There was a gay real estate agent who got the crap kicked out of him by like 3 dudes at an open house. I'm not saying that means to live in fear. But I am saying that, as potentially as a woman, as someone who is small, as someone who has, a lot of their personal life exposed online, like showing that they have a fair amount of wealth, showing that they're gay or what have you, all of those things can potentially make you a target. And so it is very important for you to be cognizant of that and prepare yourself for the fact that not everyone you meet is going to be the right person. Some people are just not well, and in real estate we could encounter those. So moral of the story, please do everything you can to be safe, and if there's anything Isaac and I can do, please let us know. And that's what I got.
Cool, thanks.
Thank you, Robyn. Hey, can I add something?
Yeah.
So your super key, the digital one that's on your phone, actually has some safety features. You can set up someone that it alerts. You do that through the super website. So if you don't want to spend money on an app, you're already paying for your super key. So that's a good thing to look into.
I absolutely agree. I have not explored that myself very much just because I've had Noonlight for the last, since like 2014. So that's what I always I always used. It used to be called Safe Trek, but it has been a super reliable company. Sometimes these companies do come and go. So I think trying to find a company that's got some longevity, that, you know, you're not going to buy the app and then in an emergency there's 3 people manning the phones. It's worth looking up the clout of the company before you sign up for any annual recurring fees. Super crappy topic today, guys. I'm sorry that sucked. I think today, especially as America suffers from another mass shooting, it's hard to talk about these things, but I think they're really, really important. And so if you do have any questions about carrying weapons or what have you, I'm not an expert, but I'm sure Isaac and I can help you connect with some information that would help.